Welcome to Wing Commander, the granddaddy of all space combat games. And by that, I do mean both this game is incredible and it's old. Like, available on 5.25 floppy disk old. Take to the stars and defeat the evil cat people, the Kilrathi, in an epic struggle for survival in the galaxy. What's the reason and purpose of this war? It's not really clear. Luckily, they made sequels. In fact, Wing Commander was the launching point for one of the best space fighter series of all time. Okay, there's like 3 space fighter series of all time, but credit where credit's due. And one of them was Wing Commander Privateer. Oh, and we got a movie with Matthew Lillard and Freddie Prinze Jr. I mean, it wasn't great, but anyway, that's not important. What is important is what you get to do. Fly around, shoot the enemy, talk shit to the enemy, and more fly around and shoot. I mean, look, the game's 1990, guys. How dynamic do you want it to be? Oh, but you do get to talk to your bartender. So listen to your mission briefing, strap in, and hope you don't get killed by those asteroids.
Retro Recall.
Welcome back to Retro Recall, the show with more pixels than you can fit on a 1990s EGA monitor. Why are we talking about EGA monitors, John? What are we doing? This is a different show this week. What am I in for? What are you doing to me? What is going on?
Today we decided, I decided that I wanted to go play something that I didn't realize how much I loved till I went back and played it again. It's effectively launched the sci-fi space combat and a lot of ways some of the RPGs. Wing Commander.
Wing Commander. Mm-hmm. I did not play this one, and that's why this is like your special little baby episode where you get to tell me all the cool things about a game I've never played, and I get to see if I think it's as good as you think it is, because I don't have the nostalgia for this one, but you sure do.
I'll be honest, when we picked this show and I picked it, I didn't realize how much nostalgia I had for it until I started playing it again. So today we're going to do something totally different. We're going to skip the challenge. Whether or not it holds up, as it really doesn't matter. Instead, we're going to focus on the game itself as basically a cultural icon and talk less about does it hold up and more of am I out of my mind that I love this game as much as I do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk. I guess we just start off with, why did you pick this one? I mean, you said you picked it initially before you even remembered how much you love it, and then you fell back in love with it again. So why did you go to it to begin with? All
right, let's go through some of the quick hits on Wing Commander. So first off, it's ranked number 7 as best game of all time on PC, and one of the main publications, and every other publication have it in the Hall of Fame. Like every single one. So I was like, okay, we should play this game again. And what I do remember about it is it led to one of my favorite games of all time, Wing Commander Privateer, which is this insane open world game whose ending does leave a lot to be desired, and that it just ends and you're like, oh, well, can I just go back to moving goods around? That was kind of fun. Mm-hmm. I've played the hell out of Privateer. As a child, I played the hell out of this one, Wing Commander 2, Wing Commander Academy, Wing Commander 3, Wing Commander 4, which was one of those ones where they had movies in the middle of it, including Mark Hamill. Can't go wrong with Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Privateer 2 was kind of disappointing. That's not
Privateer 3, Electric 4. Boogaloo. That was a good one.
Yeah. Wing Commander 4, for example, has Mark Hamill, John Rhys Davies, and Malcolm McDowell in it.
Nice.
So, I mean, these games hit. They made a movie out of it with Freddie Prinze Jr. in it. This franchise got real big. And, the truth is, I'm probably just going to use this cast as set up when we play Wing Commander Privateer later, because I love it. But today we're going to focus on the origin of the game. Get it?
Yeah.
Origin.
Because
they made this.
Origin Systems.
Origin Games made this.
Yeah, Origin Games,
they made
whatever
this.
They're called.
And Origin Games also had a lot of control over my youth because they made the Wing Commander series. They made System Shock, another very important first-person shooter, aka BioShock many years later when they just ripped that game off. Crusader No Remorse, which is a good lead-in to Fallout. It's actually a lot of the original Fallouts. Crusader No Remorse. And then for people who like flight simulators, the Jane's Combat Simulators are some of the best ones ever made. Those were Origin games that EA that later acquired. And then for the D&D people, Ultima. So Origin, As you can tell, I'm kind of into this, guys. Sorry, this is one that I'm very passionate around.
This is going to be the John totally nerds out and tries to convince me why I should definitely play it.
You have no idea. This is like really like playing the game. I'm going to say it again. Playing this again, I just went into a rabbit hole of joy.
Joy rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I don't know how you... Okay. Anyway, I think I played Privateer. I think I played that one. I think I might have put like 20 hours into it. I know I didn't stick with it super long, but I'm pretty sure I played that one. But I never played this first one. So, okay, so I guess we'll just get into the nitty gritty here. Like, what is it about this game? Like, it's doing something.
Let's talk about the game itself. Yeah, so it was released September 26th of 1990 by Origin Systems. Origin had been doing pretty well up to this point with their Ultima series, like a D&D adjacent RPG game. And they wanted to try their hand at a space simulator, originally called Space Rogue, which they'd made first. But Space Rogue was still more Ultima. It was more of an RPG travel around. This game was instead meant to be, well, what if we just did the space combat thing? They based it off of a book called Known Space, or actually might be a series of books by a guy named Larry Niven, in which humanity is in an intergalactic war with the cat people for control of the galaxy. The thing I love about this game, though, and what gets you down the rabbit hole and why you end up playing more in the series,
the rabbit hole of joy,
it is because they never give you a why. You're just flying this plane around, shooting the Kilrathi, but you don't really necessarily know why. There's a combat, there's a war between the two, and they actually flesh it out in subsequent games to the point where I finished playing this game and I've already loaded Wing Commander 2. Because I'm just going to do them all. I now need this story concluded.
Well, I mean, if we know anything about cats are evil. So
yes, by default.
By default, we just lost half of our audience. Half of our audience is like, they're dog people. I'm out.
No, it's fine. Cats are great, but I always tell people when you get a kitten, you have a kitten. Kittens are great. You get one of 3 cats comes out of the kitten. The one that just is cool and wants to be left alone, the one that wants to hang out with you, and the one that hates you and everything about you. And you don't know which one you're getting. And that's a joy of cats. And they're all lovable. They're all cool. But, that's the thing about cats.
Yep.
You get the third one. There's not a lot of videos of other animals looking the owner dead in the eye while pushing something off a countertop. Yep. That is only a cat thing.
Yeah, that's a domination play right there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing I really want to talk about with this game that sets it out is how long it is, or more importantly, the way you progress through it. So every game really up to this point was arcade style. You had a mission, you had to win the mission or you lose. That's simple. And you lose, the game's over.
Right.
In this one, there's actually almost like a mission tree you go through. And each section you're in, if you win, you go to this section. If you lose, you go to this section. Mm-hmm. You can still end up winning the game having lost missions. In fact, almost everyone does. Truthfully, actually, to get the max amount of kills in the game, you have to lose like the 2 missions in order to play through and fight the right amount of enemies. There's whole like Wikipedia's in this, obviously, guys.
Sure, right. But if you gamify it,
yeah. But this this was new.
Okay, so this is 1990, and this game doesn't rely on. I mean, we've been talking about NES games from like after 1990 that still feel more like coin-op games that punish you for your deaths and make it really hard. And yet, this game is. Like the way you're describing it, it's charting a course through the game depending on how you perform. But then the little bits that I know about this, you still go back to your ship. You still talk to other people. There's still like other pilots competing for score and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that continues to develop as you go through the game.
This game, what I'll say is, and we'll get more into it later, going back and playing it, actually, and I'd encourage anyone who played the original to go back, and actually, I'd encourage anyone to play this game again. I like it that much. You see stuff that's commonplace in games today, and I had the moment of like, oh my God, that was the first time I ever saw that. Was Wing Commander. The first time where I could lose a mission and didn't have to play it again. Now you're going to continue. It's like, you just lost the mission. All right. The Kilrathi blew up the ship that you were escorting. Okay. Well, it's going to happen. So next mission.
Right.
Like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, so that's like a real world kind of thing, right? It's like, the mission didn't go well, but I'm not dead. We still have other objectives to further. So let's keep going,
Yeah. And this game really did feed a lot of other games because of this. Because as we've all said before, when you're talking about game development, and like this game would have probably started production 1988 or so in order to have a 1990 release. It could have been 1989, but to have a release like this, it's not easy to program these things. When you release a game and it's a commercial hit, which is what this one was, they sold over 250,000 copies within the first few months of release. Mm-hmm. So this is a commercial hit. That means it now gets to influence everybody. And so one thing I will caveat is I'm going to use the phrase first time a lot today. I'm going to admit, I don't think Wing Commander was the first one to think of all these things, but they were the first one to do it and have it be commercially successful.
It's the first big success story of that.
Yeah,
and I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one of the things I've glommed and just kind of looking into this a little bit as we've been discussing the game, is that it's not just the fact that it does this one thing and it made that popular. It's that it did this and this and this and this. It did a whole bunch of things that then show up later on, and it did them all at the same time in a package that people bought and people played, and somehow I missed out on. Like, I ended up playing X-Wing, which was highly informed by this game.
X-Wing doesn't exist without this game. I'll just call it out. X-Wing does not exist without Wing Commander. Yeah,
and
that's how important this game is.
Right, and looking at footage from the game and kind of doing some research on this, there were moments where I was like, oh, look at that. Yep. Like, and I can see the lineage there, and I can see, and there's, even the artwork, the way they do the EGA or the VGA graphics, they're pulling from older RPG games, like the Sierra games. This is something I definitely wanted to dig into a little bit. Like, there's a little bit of King's Quest or Quest for Glory in the way they design the characters and the way they animate and those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, and the way the characters completely. Yeah, that stuff plays into it. You can see the RPG lineage of it, and you could see some of the combat, they were merging a bunch of things, they were building out new stuff, and then you can totally see how it builds out into other things. But what keeps blowing my mind is that was 1990. That's the part. We have these huge games that come out 5-10 years later that seem more well known for these systems that already existed in 1990. Well, just to establish how long ago this was, when you purchased this game, you could get it on 11 5.25 floppy disks. That was one of the ways you either got it on floppy disk or you got it on 3.25. So it was 3.5. So it was on 5.25 or 3.5.
Right.
Yeah. In a sleeve.
Yeah. That's all of 5 megabytes, right?
Yeah. It was a 5 megabyte game.
Yeah. Like a song, for people who don't understand, one song in MP3 form is 5 megabytes. That's how that works. But here, I love one of my 5 megabyte game. Yeah, one of my favorite things about our discussions is going back to when this was launched and what the world was like in 1990. Like, when this came out, what was going on in the world?
All right, so we're talking September 1990. The number one song in America is "Release Me" by Wilson Phillips. I have no idea what this song is.
So I can picture this song in my head. I remember this song. I remember it. I remember the video coming up on MTV. I remember that it is Wilson Phillips was the most milquetoast trio of women in a group ever. It is the most bland.
They're women. I assumed it was a guy.
No,
I have no idea what this is.
They have beautiful harmonies.
Wilson Phillips.
It is some of the most bland and boring music ever to be on pop radio. Yes.
Well, that's fine, because a week after this was released, we got Seasons in the Abyss by Slayer, so that makes up for it for me.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm good.
There you
go. In the theaters, we have Goodfellas, which is a very, very, very good movie.
Classic.
And you also have Death Warrant, where Jean-Claude Van Damme is a cop who goes undercover in a prison to track down the mastermind of a series of murderers.
Because 1990 was still really the 80s. Yeah. Let's just be honest.
Oh, this movie's awesome. By the way, the best part about Death Warrant is I saw that and I'm like, I think I've seen that. And so, you go to YouTube, you look up clips and you go, not only have I seen this, I significantly enjoyed it when it came out. It is There are mullets. There is everything in this movie. It is fantastic. Also, I should mention for international listeners and anyone with a basic knowledge of history, this is when Germany was reunified from its East-West split. The Berlin Wall went down a little bit before, but this is when it became official. Germany was unified. So
congratulations,
there's also
Germany.
that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
There's also that.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm firmly set in my mind in the world that was 1990. So what else? Let's talk about Wing Commander some more. What else makes this so amazing?
All right. So let's talk about. I wanted to kind of break it down a little bit from the way we usually do it into instead of like the hilarious, the bad, and the good and the bad. I wanted to do the new, the improved, and the legacy. And what I mean by that is the stuff that they introduced that was new, the stuff that they took that was already out there that they improved, and then the legacy of those things. And when we talk about new, as I said before, some of it isn't new. But this was the first time any of us had seen it new. The first one is simply, it's a space flight simulator. That didn't exist. There have been a couple of attempts at it, but this was like we had at this point, when you talk about PC gaming traditionally, which is what this is, there were a lot of flight simulators. It was a very common thing. The way, I've never flown a plane in my life, but I can buy some joysticks, I can get a whole setup, and I can use like Sim. Is it Microsoft Sim Flight? It's got a term like that.
Flight Simulator.
Microsoft Flight Simulator. There it was.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
You could just fly a plane around, but you also had Red Baron, F-15 Strike Eagle. These are games I played, by the way. And a bunch more. Yeah. But these games were take off, shoot things, or not in Flight Simulator, but do things, land plane. That's about it. Right. There was
Top Gun on the NES. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Wing Commander does this in space. And that may not sound like much, but at this time, anything done in space like this was, again, an arcade where you would have a set path you were going on, and you were just kind of shooting at stuff while flying around.
Right.
Where in Wing Commander, I control my speed. I even have afterburners. I actually control my pitch. I've got navigation points I have to go through. That asteroid belt. Oof, that's a fun journey. But it becomes a very different style of game that really, again, I'm sure there are people who'd made stuff like this before, but not this level of commercial success. For people like myself, I'd never seen this before. And now I am all the way in that down the rabbit hole fast in this game.
A good differentiation for a lot of people would be Star Fox, where you're basically going down a corridor on a track, and there are things that come at you, there are events that happen, and you kind of maneuver through it. Even though you're not necessarily in the ship, but you're kind of flying through things, right?
You're up, you're
down, left, right. Right. That's it.
In this one, I can turn around.
Yes. Yeah.
In this one, I can go anywhere. The world is my oyster.
Right. You're inside the ship. You can get 360 full range, up, down, left, right, every direction. And from what I can tell, kind of like X-Wing, you've got a mission. So you go to the place where the mission is, and maybe bad guys show up and you deal with them, and then you continue to the thing you need to go to. And it's not just on rails. Is that right?
Yeah. That's a great way to describe it, because that is really, I think Star Fox is a great example of it. Like, we're doing this. I was also thinking there's a Star Wars arcade game that was like this too, but side note.
Yeah.
With Wing Commander, that ability to kind of move around and almost explore was huge. And this becomes copied quite a bit. We'll get to this more in the legacy bit, but this becomes a very main part of the legacy. But another piece that was really wild, and we talked about this earlier, was your ability to lose a mission. Now, if you died, you died. You died. They actually had a little funeral sequence for you, too. It's kind of nice. But if you ejected, or more often where you would lose a mission is you were on an escort mission, and the Kilrathi would attack, they'd blow up the thing that you were escorting. Or you wouldn't get somewhere in time before they could blow it up.
Yeah, that stuff would happen in X-Wing. So, that's why that feels like X-Wing to me. Yeah.
Exactly. X-Wing, it's kind of a ripoff, but one of them was made by LucasArts, who had a lot more. I mean, Origin had money, but not LucasArts money. And LucasArts also made the Guybrush Threepwood game, so I'm going to give them a lot of passes.
Pirates, whatever. That's not whatever that was called. Why does that not come back to my brain?
It's not like loading Steam to find out. But they're a wonderful company. They made some great games. So this was a really nice change, though, because like outside of a couple random RPGs, and again, think about that's commonplace today. You can't if I go play a game, I'm going to have you obviously played a little bit of Skyrim in your life,
just a little bit, Yeah,
just a hair, and a dash of Fallout too. I mean, I'm with you on Fallout. Skyrim's
a few hours.
More your world. But yeah, exactly. You can lose those, like the side quests. You lose them, and it affects the story a little bit. But that's it. And if you're allowed to lose them, we didn't have that back then.
Yeah.
It was like, you're on. You go to level 3. You got to beat level 3.
Right. Or that was only relegated to games like Ultima, which is another game we mentioned earlier.
Which is Origin, of course.
But those are like hardcore RPGs in the style of Dungeons and Dragons. And if you go off on this little side adventure and you don't complete the thing, there's some sort of result that continues the story. And even though it didn't turn out the way you had hoped, the story keeps going. Because that's what D&D is like, Yes.
That's supposed to be.
You just keep going. And if you're not dead, you keep going. Yep. But that in a, can you imagine that happening in Star Fox? That doesn't even make any sense. You beat the level, you move to the next level. It's a video game. Yep. So really what you're telling me is that they included more of this simulation aspects, not just from piloting the ship, which is real cool because you got your engines and you got your shields and that kind of stuff. I have to reference X-Wing because you have the different shields and the different angles and sides and things like that. Yep. When it came to controlling your ship, how simulatey is that a word? Simulation-y was it?
I mean, to be fair, if you played X-Wing, you didn't play Wing Commander, you're going to find a lot of similarities, just not in the TIE Fighter anymore. Or an X-Wing, I guess. It's that's what it is. They're very similar games. This one came first, and I played both. So we're not going to console war this right now. You know what I mean? I played both. I enjoyed both quite heavily. I actually like the Wing Commander story more, interestingly. And part of it actually was this next bit I want to talk about too, which is the introduction of a narrative within the game. So in between missions, you hang out at the bar. You chat with other pilots. There's a bartender. In later missions, I think the TV's on. You've got your leaderboard is behind them where you can see who has the most kills, you versus the NPCs.
Right.
And you interact with these people.
There's smooth jazz on in the background. I did watch a portion where this happens. The smooth jazz part. Oh, man.
That part's kind of funny. But when I was laughing, I said, it loaded up and I'm looking at this scene and my immediate memory went to StarCraft 2. Where it's the same thing, where you're in between, where you're in the little bar, and I've forgotten the guy's name. I'm sorry, but everyone's there, and you have these. I mean, they're fixed conversations, right? Yep. But they're there, and in between, you're having conversations with NPCs.
Right. Yeah,
and I didn't exist before this.
I also love how, because this was like a 5 megabyte game, there wasn't audio. There's not voice actors reading out stuff. It's just text.
It's just text.
But in order to let you know that this guy's Irish, they use certain words that make it sound like
he may have been Scottish, actually.
Or maybe Scottish.
You laddie in the game quite a bit.
Oh, does he call you laddie? I was trying to pick up. I was like, this is clearly trying to tell me that there's some sort of northern, UK something going on. But then there's the French lady who says monsieur.
Mon ami.
Yeah.
She calls him mon ami quite a few times.
Right.
I really did play this game, guys. Oh yeah. I mean, I went back into this hard.
Yeah. So I did notice that stuff in some of the footage I watched. And then there's even when you go to the barracks where everyone's sleeping and it's co-ed and you click on a person to save the game. And there's even a little animation of
feet.
Yeah. Okay. It's their feet.
Their feet to save the game. Yep.
And there's an animation of a water bucket and a leaky roof.
Yeah.
Which is it feels very Starship Troopers. Co-ed, we've got to go to war, the universe needs to be saved, but we don't have enough to patch the freaking hole in the roof so the water doesn't drip in a bucket all night.
Or just the animation of when, after you finish your mission briefing of the people running, that animation you look at it and it's funny. It looks like full movement, but it's I think it's 3 or 4 stills.
Yeah.
But another piece, too, that makes this game stand out, and this was actually a bit more common back then, was the amount of lore that was into it. I mean, Tom and I both have a little bit of love of lore because of our other projects, But this book came with a manual that was called, I think, the Tiger's Claw, something like that. And in that manual, actually, give me 1 second here. Claw marks. it actually came with something called claw marks. And claw marks was a manual that both told you how to play the game, but also the front half of it was almost like a propaganda piece talking about what's going on with like stories from the front line. You know, it's like a news, like nice. Almost a news article. Nice. And it just gets you further into it. Even during the game, you have cutscenes, and the cutscenes depict like key elements that are going on in the war between humanity and the Kilrathi. Again, by 1990, we had cutscenes in video games. Don't get me wrong, but it was the idea that you really are pushing this storyline forward, but still not answering all the questions.
Yeah. Well, all of that tells me that what they were doing was they were pulling you into the universe. And this is something that we don't get with game releases anymore. Even when you buy a physical copy of the game, oftentimes it's like a code to download it inside the box. But this is something that people who weren't around back then need to understand is in the 90s, when you bought a PC game, the PC box was like a cereal box. It was big. And if it was an RPG, it had a map, and it had like some sort of like lore book, and it had drawings of like some of the monsters. You might have had a bestiary with the different monsters in it and like that kind of stuff. So what they were doing is before you even got into the game, because it took forever to load that 5 megabytes, one disk at a time onto your hard drive, you could sit there and be immersed in the world that you're about to get into. And then once you're in the world, you're going on these missions, but then you're following it up with these other stories and things. So yeah, absolutely. This is kind of mind blowing. This is 1990, and these are things that you see a decade later in all sorts of games that they were doing in a flight sim. Yeah. I mean, Tom, it's 3 decades later. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm saying even games in 2000 were doing. Oh yeah. In the 90s. Oh yeah. I was going to say, right. We are like, not now, especially, but like, I don't love how old I am either, but By the time you got to like even just 10 years later, you like you were saying, things would show up in like Diablo or Baldur's Gate or whatever. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, this was like, all the Blizzard games had this built in. I mean, by the time even the first Warcraft had this built in. But one area we should talk about with that element is what I call the improved. And so the improved, this is where the developers at Origin, they're not oracles of the future. They didn't build a game totally from scratch. They took stuff they'd already seen and they improved it. But one thing that they took a real gamble on was they took this game, and unlike they pushed it. I was going to use like Cyberpunk, but this game actually worked. They went to push it, and they said, we're going to make a game that's going to be in the upper limits of gaming PCs at the time. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if I'm going to tell you that phrase, we're going to discuss what those upper limits are, because our listeners, I'm sure, know enough about computers. So the upper limit, the recommended level, was a 16 megahertz processor, 2 megabytes of RAM, not gigabytes, megabytes, and a Sound Blaster audio card. Yeah, for that smooth jazz. Most people didn't own that. No. The game came on either 6 3.5-inch discs or 11 5.25. Yeah, and took up 5 megabytes. Yeah. And they even had, and this is something I found this earlier doing a little bit of research. They had different versions of the game that came out on different platforms. But if you were on PC and you had an older PC that could barely run it, you would have the EGA graphics, which were like 16 colors. And does that stuff take me back to Sierra games and that stuff. But then you had the VGA graphics where like humans stopped looking like pizza and started looking like people. Yeah, and I'll be honest, like now, when I replayed the game, I did have to put a mod into it to get the graphics up a little bit, just because I am running it on a custom-built PC, and I really can't run something that archaic. But my upconvert was just enough to make it not as blocky as it would be otherwise. That being said, I do remember at the time how good the graphics were. I mean, it was a big jump, because we are in, I think, September 1990. The Super Nintendo releases like a month or two after this game comes out. So we're getting our first Sega Genesis had already released, I think in 1989, if I'm not mistaken. Sega Genesis came out, but we're at NES to NES. But this game
for a PC standpoint, was a massive jump with fluidity, with graphics. I mean, it's big. And I actually think 5 megabytes might also be bigger than the SNES games, but I don't want to call that out.
I think so.
Not 100%.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. The Genesis came out in August of 89. Yeah. And yeah, 5 megabytes was bigger than from what I remember. Yes. Like,
yeah, so that's what this game's also this was again. I'm just going to take a side note here. I am a PC gamer. I play console games. I like console, but my first love will always be PC gaming. And part of it was games like this because they were, to this exact point, they were larger. They could do more with it. So if I'm talking about a game on PC in 1990 or a game on Super Nintendo in 1990. With the exception of maybe Zelda, there's not a lot of games Super Nintendo that would hold up to a lot of the PC games in length and size.
Yeah, even
comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest comparison is usually like the JRPGs, the Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Legend of Zelda, like that stuff, and they were big in their own right, but you would have to compare those to the things that were happening on PC at the time, and PC always, I mean, heck, even once you got through, Castle Wolfenstein and Doom and that kind of stuff, there was a seriousness and a depth to PC gaming that consoles, it took them another decade to really kind of catch up to. Yeah. Kind of my feeling too. I'm in the same camp with you.
I think you're fair. And with all that though, one area that it's funny that, there were some complaints. I found out some complaints at the time. The game was, because they had this whole 5 megabytes to work with, you had a lot more options in game. So for example, when you're flying, I can control, as I said earlier, I can steer myself around. I can look out different windows. I can adjust my speed. I can even throw on my afterburners. But my favorite ones where I can communicate. So I can talk to my wing pilot, or I can talk shit to the enemy. I mean, It was preset, but it was no one had this before. I mean, this is amazing. So it was preset things, but it was really cool. Some people actually complained about it though, because there is a lot of complexity. Like when you're playing on a keyboard, you are hitting a lot of buttons all at once. It's not massive, but it is. I mean, I say that, and we live in an era where there's competitive StarCraft, and I've seen how those kids play the game.
Right.
I didn't know you could do that to a keyboard. So,
yeah. Well, so like going back to this game, you would have had a joystick for your PC. Yep. So you would have been using your joystick with its like 3 buttons or whatever it was. Yep. And then you would have had to take one of your hands to then like push a button and then get back to your joystick and push a button again. That
wasn't hard. You get used to it. Like, it's funny playing the game again. I'm like, oh, joysticks. And they still make them actually, but I'm not going to buy one for. To
but it was less convenient. It wasn't like, oh, you just hit the other button on your controller because you have 14 buttons or something. Or a pop-up
it was
menu.
A different era.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
Yeah.
Another one I did really like, as we talked about in the last one, was the communication between like the pilots and even just inside of the ship. So, you get brought into a briefing with your commanding officer, and he would give you tell you what your next mission is, or he might promote you or give you a medal if you kill enough guys, that kind of stuff. These were nothing little things, but they really gave it your character some feel, which didn't really happen.
It sounds like it plays into the whole, I'm playing a character in a world that responds to what I do, all of that.
Yeah. Now, one thing that was interesting when I went back to this, that at first I thought I wouldn't like, and I realized I did like, when you go, as we said before, there's like a mission tree you're on. So each section you're in a different thing. Your plane changes. There's only, I believe, 4 planes in it, but it's not like a lot of games where you level up and then you improve yourself and do this, which is actually what Wing Commander Privateer lets you do. This game, depending on where you are, you're on either a really fast ship, a really armored ship, the hybrid one that's both. It's all these different like setups. Really cool concept that as I play through the game, you actually had to get better at the game to beat it. You couldn't rely on like experience farming and those types of things.
Right.
Which, given that this has got an RPG element, it having that piece is interesting. I mean, again, they didn't have. I mean, I could spend an hour talking about how much I hate dynamic scaling, but that's a side note for a different day.
Sure, okay.
This wasn't dynamic scaling. This was just straight up.
Well, I mean, if you're part of a fleet of pilots and you have certain models of spacecraft that you can fly, but they use this in X-Wing as well. In the first X-Wing game, you piloted an X-Wing or a Y-Wing or an A-Wing, depending on the mission that you were on. And that was it. Exactly. And if you were in that Y-Wing, you're slow and you got a lot of bombs and missiles, and that's it. Good luck.
Yeah, so let's move on to the legacy of the game, because I think it's time for us to address this. We've talked about it a few times. So this game in Wing Commander affected a lot of games in the future. The first thing it did was space combat games becoming a launch. I mean, when you sell the way that they sold, everyone takes notice. And a bunch of people came in to copy, LucasArts Studio being one of them.
Yeah.
And they made X-Wing they made X-Wing, TIE Fighter. They made a bunch of
X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance. I don't think I played that one. They just kept going with them for a while. But here, like, even going back to that first, this is my point of reference. You mentioned how you could, when you were piloting the ship, you could look out the side window or look behind you.
Yep.
That was another one of those little features that shows up in X-Wing. It's like they took all of these little story, like the way, like this was the template for how you did a RPG piloting kind of crossover type of game. I don't even, like, it seems like it almost needs its own name for what this is.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm not accusing LucasArts or anyone of ripping off Wing Commander. You're not ripping someone off when they have a good idea and you make your own thing with it, which is what they did here. I mean, it's in the same way. It's like same with music. If I'm stealing your beat, I'm ripping you off. If I say, hey, to reference Back to the Future, if you just because you hear something, you think it's a good sound, doesn't make it wrong. To say, hey, I like that. Right. I would like to make more things like that. So LucasArts did an amazing thing with this.
It's called inspiration.
Yeah, that's what this is. So these are not like, oh, these people copied it. This is why I call it legacy. This is their legacy of Wing Commander. This game created so much stuff. Oh, I love it. Another thing it did, kind of in the X-Wing, I'm not sure if X-Wing really dove into this as much as they could have, was the RPG element of it, where there's a ton of game lore. And I say X-Wing doesn't because X-Wing is set. You still have a story with an X-Wing,
right? But
we all kind of know what's happening in Star Wars.
And it's less about
the Star Wars universe.
Right. It's less about you being a specific pilot who then moves up the leaderboard compared to the other pilots. And then you have these like relationships. And it was more about, this is the mission. This is what the Empire is doing. This is why we need to stop them. Here's the cut scene with Admiral Akbar moving his mouth only, going rah, 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 or whatever. And then that was it. Like, that's what X-Wing was. So it leaned more into like, hey, isn't it cool to be an X-Wing pilot? And less about like, you're Joe pilot guy, and this is your personal story.
Exactly. And with Wing Commander, it introduced something that I think becomes really critical in a lot of later games of creating lore and story behind it. The more you play Wing Commander, and this is also going to come into if you play further into the series, the more you go into that, the more you learn about what's really going on. You learn about like the reasons for the war, how it happens. But even in the first game, you're seeing it's not just, to your point, oh, I flew from here and I flew to there and I killed stuff and I came back. Then you get a news breakdown about how some human scientists overwhelmed an elite special forces of Kilrathi, which, by the way, makes no sense, but we'll skip that part. But that's one of the ones in there. You've got them blowing up stuff, like taking out a Kilrathi base. There's all these little things going through it. And the lore just progresses as you get through, which helps bring you into it. It's one of these games where you play for hours on end. By the way, also, there's one more thing it has I should have mentioned. I'll get to that in a second. But you have all these things that it has really brings you heavily into the universe itself. Also, what we didn't mention? You could save.
Yeah, well, yeah. We mentioned the barracks where you click on their feet to save the game.
Well, it's funny because it wasn't in my notes, and I realized as I'm talking, I was like, "Oh crap! I could save in this game." Yeah, so if you died in a mission, you died in a mission. You just would load your save up, and you'd go back through it.
Right.
So, versus console games, that's a big deal, guys. Well, I think we get saves.
Yeah, well, you like Zelda, The Legend of Zelda had a battery in the cartridge so that you could save your game because they knew they knew that you couldn't beat that game in just one session, just sitting there, or you wouldn't. I mean, you can now, but like at the time,
I'm just trying to think, but like save is almost, I mean, Dark Souls, not so much obviously, but almost all games have saving in them now. It wasn't common back then.
Yeah.
Especially in these types of games.
Right. And I think it's that there's a flip right in the late 80s, early 90s where games went from, they finally broke away from everything that was designed. The designers had ingrained in their heads about how to make a game because arcades were where you played games to, okay, if you're at home, we don't need to design something that will last for an hour and you can get through it in an hour. We need to design something that will last for 20 hours, 50 hours, 100 hours, and then you keep coming back to. So you have to have saves in order for that to work.
Yeah, and I like being also with the saves, being able to walk away from the game. I mean, I was playing this as a child, but now I'm playing it as an adult with a job and family and all those things.
Right.
I can't just go, I'm going to go play video games for 6 hours. I have to be able to play it. So I could play a mission here. Mission would take me 10 minutes, and I can save it.
Right.
Turn it off. And I can
it also solves the mom says it's time for dinner. And you're like, Mom, I'm in the middle of the game.
Yeah. Pause. No one touch my Nintendo. Yeah. No, we've all done it. One thing I think that's really clever about this game is with the lore, is it actually ends up almost becoming its own marketing for itself, where you play Wing Commander, and then when Wing Commander 2 came out, it wasn't just, now with better graphics, you can still shoot Kilrathi. It was more, well, do you want to know what's going on with this war? Do you want more information on it? Wing Commander 3, Wing Commander 4, and you go down this route. And as someone who's played them all, the story's pretty good, as opposed to like, I don't know, Assassin's Creed, where they made Odyssey, and I still have no idea why.
Oh man, it gets all over the place. But it sounds.
But Mass Effect. This is what Mass Effect was. You beat the first Mass Effect. The game was incredible, and I was going to play the second one no matter what. But the fact the second one was also going to move the storyline along made me want to play it even more. Right.
Yeah, they learned a lot. This is another thing they pulled from RPGs. You know, you get far enough into the Ultima series and they are referencing previous events from the previous game and how the world has changed in this one, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, they're taking those RPG elements and here's the other impression I get from this is that they're, as much as they were drawing inspiration from other previous games and titles that were outside the simulation kind of space, they were also pulling from movies. I get the impression that they were going, we want to make a movie experience, but something you can't do in a movie where you can be the character and do the thing and still get the story like you would in a movie. And so we start to see the emergence of animated cutscenes and things like that, which eventually when CD-ROMs come around become like actual actors, like doing things in front of a green screen and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
One thing, when you mention it, it's interesting, and that this is probably just an origin game standpoint, because that's what made System Shock so different. System Shock was a first-person shooter. We covered Duke Nukem. It's a first-person shooter, but there was a story. You woke up and you didn't know what was going on, and as you played the game, you discovered what was going on in System Shock. Something that we've seen. I mean, that was a big deal. Essential.
Yeah, that was a big deal in Half-Life 1. That was one of the big differences between Half-Life 1 was built on the Quake engine. And yet we didn't get a story in Quake until Quake 2. And even that was very vague. And then Quake 3 went back to just an arena combat game. And then Valve comes out with Half-Life and they're like, oh, there's a story about these scientists that somehow broke reality and aliens invade and all of that. It's like these are the building blocks that inspired those jumps.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to end up doing System Shock at some point. We'll hold off for a bit, but yeah, I like System Shock a lot.
Yeah, that's another one I didn't play. I didn't pick that up at the time.
Really good game. Did you play BioShock?
I did play BioShock. Yep.
And then you played System Shock.
Yeah. With slightly better graphics and underwater. Yeah.
It's okay. I remember the first time I played BioShock, I was like, I've played this before.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not a dead rip. I'm being
unfair. But it's part of that lineage. It's the same lineage, right?
Yeah. They're very closely aligned. But actually, in that realm, though, I do want to talk about the most important thing to me of the legacy of Wing Commander, which is PC gaming. 1990, consoles are kings. Sega Genesis is out. Super Nintendo is about to come out. Nintendo was already kicking butt. You've had Game Boy is out. Mm-hmm. Consoles are everywhere. And by proxy, console games are very lucrative. And a lot of studios are focusing on the console game. And I've been playing console games my whole life, but PC is my jam. It always has been. The commercial success of Wing Commander, and it was a very big commercial success, helped show all the developers the PC market was still strong. If you made a good game in the PC market, you would sell very well. And I'm taking a wild leap here based on minimal research, but I do think games like Wing Commander helped set us up for what was the mid-90s explosion of PC gaming. Warcraft, System Shock's another one. These guys made it. XCOM, which, the amount I've played XCOM. Original, not the new one. The first one with the snapshots. I mean, I can do this game all day. I mean, from memory, I can play that game.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's because every time someone proved you could do it. Command and Conquer proved something that, hey, this style works. And then StarCraft released many years later and went, oh, yeah, by the way, this is maybe the most lucrative thing ever. Dawn of War. I digress. Right. But PC gaming owes a lot to the successful games who pushed the genre early. And I would be remiss if I didn't put Wing Commander in that category.
Yeah. Well, for 1990, this is what this sounds like to me. For 1990, PC games were known for being highly rational, like highly geared towards super nerds who want to figure out how to invade another army or how to figure out this adventure game and wander around in the wilderness until they found the banana that happened to be hanging in a tree that helped them open a door somehow. You know, like this whole adventure game.
I never want to cover Myst. I never want to cover Myst.
All of that kind of stuff.
I know we're going to have to. And I never want to cover Myst.
Yeah. And the whole feeling, because PC games consoles were designed around being fast and fluid movement and action and those kinds of things. And PC games, especially through the 80s, were much slower. And you had to have a lot of patience, and they were, in some ways, they were number crunchy and all of this other stuff. But then when you drop a game like this, and you got the slower bits where you talk to other people and all of that kind of thing, but then it's full of action and you're flying around, blowing up other things. That really sets PC up as something that a console audience would be happy to try.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Like, imagine trying to convince somebody who's played Super Mario Brothers to go play King's Quest. It feels real slow comparatively, right? Yeah. Even though we're talking the same years, it's just not that kind of a thing. It appealed to an older audience that had more patience, but this feels like the kind of thing that years later we definitely saw on consoles, because it makes sense.
Wing Commander actually was on console. Wing Commander it got ported into Super Nintendo. If I'm not mistaken.
Right. It got ported because it makes sense. So it starts out as a PC game, but then it totally still makes sense on a console. Whereas, like, imagine trying to play Civilization 1 on a console.
There was a Civilization they released on console, and it did not sell for some weird reason.
Well, there was one. Yeah, it came out like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. There was like and it's not like there's a mobile version. It's simplified and all of that. But like, go back to 1990 and play Civilization 1 on a console. Yeah. No thanks.
Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But this works.
I'll play Civ 1 with my little blocks.
Right. Right. Yeah.
All right. So Tom, here's a big question. Are you now going to go play Wing Commander?
Well, I think you've convinced me about the importance of the game. I don't know that I'm going to invest my time in playing Wing Commander 1.
Fair enough.
I think it's still a little bit long in the tooth, if we're going to use that phrase. It's a little old.
It might be a little crunchy.
It's a little crunchy. That's where my brain was going. It's a little crunchy. The graphics are a little crunchy. It's a little limited. But you've convinced me more about why this is important. And I'll say it again. The things that it brought in 1990 were things that became standard 10 years later. And if you had asked me before we did any research for this episode and got together and talked about this at all, hey, what year do you think Wing Commander came out? I probably would have guessed 4 years after this, like 94.
Yeah.
But no.
I actually had the same thought. Yeah, it wasn't until when we did the research, like 1990.
Yeah.
And I remembered installing it with 3. I mean, I think I had a 3.5 back then on a 3.5. I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember. I remembered loading a 3.5 in, and it would load for a while. And insert next one. You press the button on the outside of your mirror, the 3.5 would pop out.
Yep.
Put the next one in.
Yep. Each disc took like 5 or 10 minutes to like load onto your hard drive. And the little thing the little bar would fill up. Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Well, so I don't know that I'm going to go play it. I mean, we've got a lot of other games to cover, so I think I'm going to move on to some other stuff. But I've gained in respect, and I look forward to when we do something like Privateer. I think that's going to be a lot more fun to actually get my hands on, and play again. But speaking of other games, what are we doing next time?
All right. After spending, 40 minutes bad-mouthing console games, next week we're going to play a console game. So next week we're going into something that dominated the life of 10-year-old John, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yes.
The very first one.
Mm-hmm. I can hear the rings chiming, and I can feel the exhilaration of running through the hills, and then all of a sudden running into a wall and stopping suddenly and going, oh, now I have to slowly start running faster again.
Yeah.
Good times.
It's going to be a challenge. I'm gonna be honest. It's a very good game. Obviously, I played a lot of it as a kid, and I'm excited going back into it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll take a look. We'll see if it holds up, kind of like we usually do on our episodes. And before then, if you've enjoyed the episode, if you want more of this stuff, make sure you review it, you comment, you subscribe, depending on what platform you're listening to this on. And if you like to check out our other stuff, John does the 40K Lorecast and the history of 40K. I do the Fallout Lorecast, the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, and the Lord of the Rings Lorecast. We've got a bunch of other shows. We're also a part of the Robots Radio network of podcasts. Most of those are on audio platforms. Some of them will have video. So go to robotsradio.net, check that out. But that's going to do it for this week.
All right, Tom, my turn to ask you, what did you learn this week?
That you like rabbit holes of joy.
Well, they're better than the other ones.
Of terror?
Of sadness.
Sadness?
Yeah, the ones of sadness. That's usually where they go.
Rabbit holes of sadness.
I wonder what happened. Have you never looked up what happened to some actor you haven't seen in a while and just discover, they're destitute.
That's true. That's true. When you say rabbit holes of joy, I just get a picture of like a physical rabbit hole that's like decorated for like a birthday party or something.
Oh. I just when I do my research, I'm like, oh, it's good things today. Yay!
Yay!
All right.
Recall.
Robots Radio. Games, lore, stories, community. Just press play.